It has been, I think, over a year since we've done a sleep paralysis episode, and I thought it'd be a good idea. I also, interestingly enough, while putting this together, I had a dream, and within that dream, I had sleep paralysis. And let me tell you, that is a weird feeling, because at one point, you almost realize that you're in the middle of a dream. And you're like, wait, I can't move. And it was this weird, though the entire dream was almost like in a drunken stupor, like where movement was just weird. And me trying to shake out of sleep paralysis like 5 times in a row is almost like the camera would glitch and then I'll be right back to the same spot, like over and over again. And to the point where I was like, okay, I know I'm dreaming now and I need to wake up. And then I did. But I've been having some weird dreams, man. Like I don't dream very often, but when I do, it seems like it's always about something getting into this house.
That is like the type of dream a father would have.
I don't know. No.
Shit sometimes, like you always have kind of weird shit like that anyway, but being a father adds like a different, like a undercurrent of fear that you don't ever really deal with because you don't want to sit in that spot all the time. That's not healthy for you to be fearful all the time, as Yoda would say.
Well, in this one, it's usually like a party or something going on in the house, and like me trying to break it up is just chaotic. But in this one, China and I were watching TV, and the back door, like we heard it chime like someone was coming in. I was like, what the hell? And I walk over there, and someone's walking towards our studio, to the studio door, and I'm like, no, you got to get out of here, man. And like when I, like he said no pretty much, and I went over and like pretty much forced him out into the backyard. And when I did, I realized there was like a gang of people out there, and they all decided to come in and start wreaking havoc. And it ended with me stabbing someone like 50 times. So
interesting. I can't do that in a dream.
I usually can't, but like this one, it was, you know, my family was in danger. I'm like, I guess I gotta just completely take this guy out. And it felt great. No, I'm just kidding. But that's beside the point. So essentially, all of that to say, we're leading into volume 4 of Sleep Paralysis Horror Stories. Some light housekeeping before we get in. I would like to let everyone know that, and I'm sure most of our listeners that are on social media have figured this out by now, but we have Sleep with the Lights on Spotify now as well. So if you have not made the jump over to YouTube to check that show out, we're going to be releasing the entire catalog of Sleep with the Lights on every Monday until we catch up to our YouTube channel, in which case it'll be available every other Monday, a few days after it premieres on YouTube. So go check that out if you could help us. It's pretty much a brand new podcast, so we don't really have any of the leverage that we have with this show, with all the reviews and stuff. So if you could do us a favor, just go watch an episode, rate it 5 stars on the TFD Sleep with the Lights on channel. And we would appreciate that greatly.
Share us.
Share us with your friends. Make us your whores. No, it's fine. Anyway, all that to say, into sleep with paralysis on. Okay, it's early. What am I saying? Sleep paralysis. We're going to get into that in just a moment. We'll see you on the inside.
You are now entering the realm of the freaky deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality, about time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically.
And now that we're on the inside, welcome back to the Freaky Deaky. We're excited you could join us once again on this beautiful, beautiful Thursday for you, but that's beside the point. If you're new to the show, we ask one thing of you, and that is that you listen to the episode in its entirety and the entire catalog of Sleep with the Lights on the other channel. And if you're a fan of what you hear, you rate it 5 stars wherever you're listening. We are truly grateful for everyone that does that. It is the only thing that helps us grow the show out. Literally the only thing. You can buy merch, you can donate, all that stuff. The only thing that really helps us grow is rating and reviewing so that we can get past all those pesky algorithms that we've come to hate. Oh, yeah.
I kind of wish you were farther into House of Dragon, or you were into season 2, because there's some, I don't know if I'd call it sleep paralysis, but it's got some dreamy things going on that I think you would find fascinating.
Yes, of course, dreamy things, my favorite.
And I'm not just talking about Damon.
Wow, disgusting. He is not very attractive. First of all, weird choice, but
he is very attractive to a lot of fans.
Oh yeah, do they like the fact he's sleeping with his niece? Is that their favorite?
No.
Yeah. We all got skeletons in the closet.
That doesn't count if you're a Targaryen.
Just make your own rules up.
The religious leaders of Westeros made a rule up for the Targaryens.
One thing we can be sure of is that George R.R. Martin is a pervert.
I don't know about that. I think it's a weird setup with all the incest.
That is a weird setup. You're right.
But it's also the way it
would. But I had this exact conversation with your daughter, and she was like, "Well, everyone knows there's a lot of incest back in those days." I'm like, "Hey, this is a fictional story. You can make it whatever you want. You don't have to make brothers and sisters fucking and cousins and uncles and all this weird." That's the mind of a pervert.
No, that's the mind of a medieval European king.
Wow. See, now you're making it a mindset of someone that doesn't even exist.
There's a thing called the Habsburg jaw.
Is that in House of the Dragon?
No, that's
and it shouldn't be. Shouldn't be considered.
That's in real life, and that jaw is very prominent. You can see it in some portraits of these leaders, and it's basically from too much inbreeding.
And that's fine, The fact that it happened in the past doesn't mean that it needs to be in our TV. I don't need to see a 15-minute sex scene between a niece and her uncle.
They're not 15
They're
minutes.
pretty damn long.
I mean, that's HBO, though. I think that's the way HBO's been since I was a kid. They gratuitous sex all the time.
Yeah. So if you want to see the perverts Lord of the Rings, you go ahead and check that out. But that's not why you're here. You're here to listen to sleep paralysis stories, and we can only hope that listeners are not currently listening to this show while sleeping and waking up in sleep paralysis episodes while we're talking, because that would probably be really weird.
That would be weird, but please, if it happens, write us the story.
Yeah, if that does happen, let us know. We don't wish it upon you, but if it happens, we'll listen to it.
I kind of do, because dreams are just dreams. You don't die in them.
Okay.
Unless it's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Unless you're in my dream and you try to take over my house, then prepare to die in it. All right. Anyway, at the end of this episode, I'm going to pitch an episode idea that I want to get our listeners' opinions on before we record it, because it's a little touchy, And I feel like we've been doing that lately, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. We've been getting into some weird topics, and that's great, but it's also kind of a stretch for what we're normally into. So,
Scott likes weird.
I do like weird. That happens.
Dude, I saw a comment from somebody that was on my side. I felt vindicated.
Was this weeks ago when it happened, or is this?
I don't know. Wow. It popped up on my screen.
Dashboard confessional over here.
Not a good band.
Well, then don't be quoting their song titles.
What was their song title I quoted?
Vindicated.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. It's been years. I'm not going to start singing it. Anyway, let's get into it. We're about 10 minutes into this recording. No idea what the actual timestamp is for the production, but let's get into this first story before everyone tunes us out and goes watching uncle-niece incest and all other fun stuff on HBO. So this first one is called Triangle-Shaped Head and Clown Laughter. It's by Celeste Valdez. It says, I believe my scariest experience was the first experience I had seeing hallucinations during sleep paralysis. I had a lot of trouble sleeping around the time it happened, and so I had woken up at around 3 to 4 a.m. to a really heavy feeling over my chest and body. I felt like I was getting shocked all over, and I realized, oh, it's just this again. But then I started hearing loud, fast, and distorted whispering in my ears, as if someone was playing Sleep with the Lights On. No, just kidding. As if someone was really by my ear talking. When I started realizing I wasn't dreaming anymore, I also began to hear screaming and crying, and then a manic laugh of what seemed like an evil clown. I opened my eyes to see if I was alone, just to lay my eyes upon a very large white figure with a big triangle-shaped head that was just looming over my paralyzed sleeping body. I was so frightened that as soon as I saw him, I didn't even want to look, and so I closed my eyes and wished really hard that nothing would touch me. And throughout that whole visual, I was still hearing the screaming and whispering and laughing. This was the most frightening sleep paralysis because I'd never, ever heard voices in my head that weren't actually there, especially of such frightening sounds. I felt like I was in a scary ghost movie. But knowing I could be more in control of my mind than the hallucinations, I closed my eyes and prayed and relaxed, and I told myself it wasn't real. My body started to wake up, even though I was so scared that I cried as soon as my body woke up. I'm proud that I was able to keep structured thoughts. Now, I don't know about you, and I don't even remember, was it Silent Hill? Did you ever play Silent Hill?
I have, yes.
Is that the big triangle thing?
I feel like that is where the triangle's coming from.
Because that's the visual I got when she said a big white figure with a triangle head. I was like, the first image I got was that crazy evil demon thing or whatever. I never played Silent Hill, but I watched enough videos of it to know that it's terrifying. You never had sleep paralysis, right?
I have.
Never saw anything, though?
No.
Yeah, every time I do one of these episodes, I'm like, has it ever happened to me? And I think back through my life, and I'm like, I feel like there was times, but I also feel like there was times where it wasn't sleep paralysis. It was me telling myself not to move because I either saw something or heard something. I'm like, nope, whatever it was, it doesn't need to know that I'm awake. It's like Santa Claus in that regard.
I've had it more than one time, but I've never seen like figures. And most of the time in those situations, I don't open my eyes. So that's probably why.
Yeah, I feel like I've had one of those too, where like I was on the cusp of sleep and I was like thinking to myself, like, are you asleep? Is this sleep? Didn't open my eyes or anything. I was like, well, if it is, then I'm just going to keep going deeper. And it was nice.
It is kind of strange when you hear those voices and stuff when you're either on the edge of sleep or having an episode of probably sleep paralysis.
Yeah, because I think everyone's heard a voice or something that when they're right on the brink of falling asleep, that like snaps them awake.
Yeah.
And usually for me, it would be like someone whispering my name or something, like directly in my ear, be like, Scott. And I'd be like, what? And look around, be like, oh, nothing's here. Okay, perfect. But I don't know what that is. That's not exploding head syndrome, is it?
I don't know. I've heard that term. I don't know what it means, though.
Means your head explodes.
That's what I would think. But obviously, if you wake up, it didn't explode.
I think it's auditory hallucinations. Like some people hear explosions and stuff like that, which is probably where the term comes from. People are going to correct me in the comments. I mean, like, that's actually not where the term comes from, Scott, you moron. But that's fine. That's why you guys are here. You're a jury of our peers.
Are they, though? Sometimes they might condemn us.
That's fine. Well, that's what a jury does as well.
Yeah.
So I guess it works perfectly.
In my case, they might condemn me when I'm perfectly innocent or speaking the truth. We grasp fear. I love the probing.
Condemn him.
I feel like we're going to offend somebody with probing the galaxy, quote unquote.
That's fine. You know, that happens sometimes. If anything, people need to acknowledge us for our
superior brain capacity.
We're getting into some weird ones.
That is a weird one right there. I don't know.
You say some weird stuff, Christian.
I do that.
But at the end of the day,
maybe demons do exist.
That's
they
fine.
Probably don't, but for this episode or for any of our episodes, they do. They must think the way I think.
Wow. Look at that. A cult leader.
No, just American.
And I'm proud. No, just kidding. That song will get stuck in anyone's head and then everyone will hate me.
Not true patriots.
Okay. I'm going to go down that path. This next story is called Scared into the Astral Plane. It's by Justin Bolton. It says, I only saw something once during sleep paralysis, even though from the age of 18 until about 35, I probably suffered close to 100 episodes. The single episode in which I saw something was by far the most bizarre of them all. I was on my side in the spoon position with my wife.
Oh, so cute.
Okay.
Must have been early on.
Wow. And we had just laid down, and as I looked in front of me at the bedroom door, I saw what appeared to be two red eyes. And immediately I attempted to jump back, alarmed, and was of course paralyzed and could not shake my wife hard enough to wake her up or open my mouth to scream her name. I fought my inability to flee so hard that suddenly the bed seemed to melt out from underneath me, and I rolled backwards onto the floor. Still mostly paralyzed and unable to open my eyes or mouth, I struggled to stand up, which I was, quote, sort of able to do for very brief moments before I collapsed back onto the floor. I could make out the faint hint of light coming from my bathroom through my sealed eyelids and attempted to make my way to it. I moved in what I call a newborn colt stride and finally made it to the bathroom, still unable to pry open my eyes. I fumbled my way to the commode. Is that a chair? A commode?
That's a toilet.
That's a toilet?
Yeah.
I've never heard a toilet called a commode.
Because you're younger.
Okay, I fumbled my way to the commode and sat down only to have it melt away, too, and send me flopping onto the floor on my ass. I struggled and pried, and finally with one great effort I was able to force my eyes open, only to find that I was still in the spoon position with my wife and hadn't moved an inch. Whatever I saw at the door literally scared me out of my body, and it was my astral body that was thrown to the floor and couldn't walk or sit or see. Most of the episodes were slightly scary, with just the feeling of being paralyzed as the only real terror. Eventually I was able to overcome these types of episodes and would routinely leave my body and float about, and these episodes became rather enjoyable. There was one particular type of episode that became more common and invasive as time went on. It would start as I lay there wide awake but relaxed and on my stomach, and an odd vibration would start to resonate through my body, and they seemed to exit or be absorbed in my ears. And I would realize what was coming, and suddenly a sharp pain would hit me right in the kidney area of my back, and it would take my breath away, and at that moment I would be overcome with the most intense feelings of fear I had ever experienced, because I felt the presence of what I can only describe as pure evil. And it was on my back and was trying to bite my neck, and although I never saw it or felt its actual teeth or claws, I had absolutely no doubt it was on me. And the fear and pain in my side would last about 20 seconds, then it would ease off for about 20 seconds, and then hit me again for about 20 seconds, and this would repeat until I would pass out. Well, that's not fun. So what are we thinking, demons?
Hell no. There's no such thing. Maybe demons do exist.
You're absolutely right.
That kidney thing, maybe you should go to the doctor.
You think so?
That his body's sending him a sign.
Yeah. The body's like, hey, there's something wrong with your kidneys. I'm going to make this invisible demon thing try to bite your neck and sit on your back until you get the message.
The neck thing might just be some kind of weird fetish that
Here we go.
that people have with vampires. I don't know, man. But the fact that he feels like he went into the astral realm just to go to the commode and fall off of it.
Classic.
Bare-assed onto the floor.
What do you think the meaning behind him not being able to see in the astral realm is?
Sounds like he was holding his eyes shut like I do when weird stuff like that happens.
Is he spiritually blind? He falls out of his body and he thinks he's stumbling around the room trying to get to the bathroom, but in reality, he's just closing his eyes.
I mean, he was experiencing something, some kind of weird-ass dream, but...
That would be a really weird thing to experience, like to have that terror go through you fall off on the floor, and you're like, it feels almost like that, what I mentioned earlier, that whole like drunkenness and dreams and stuff, where you're just like all over the place. Like, I really need to get here, and it's taken me forever. I feel like that would be very unsettling.
But then other times you can be like, oh, I'm here.
I made it. Yeah.
And you're right there.
And there you are. I don't know, man. I don't know. Every time we do these episodes, I hear a lot of very interesting things. And the common theme is obviously terror. You know, doesn't sound fun to be trapped in your own body. Can't really say for sure. I've never experienced it.
You know, and speaking of sleep paralysis, I mean, that's the default setting when we sleep anyway to protect us. I mean,
stop us from sleepwalking everywhere.
Or doing... I mean, have you've seen, I don't know if you've experienced it in real life, but obviously you've probably seen videos of dogs waking up in the middle of a dream and just running across a room into a wall or something. That's why we have sleep paralysis, to keep us from fleeing in terror when we have a bad dream or an experience like this, run into something or take a swing at our partner spooning with us in the bed and, you know, that kind of stuff. So it
could be dangerous.
It's a protection mechanism, but also, if you start to wake up in the middle of it, it's very unsettling.
But what's the difference between that? Like, if it's something natural that we do constantly, wake up from that paralysis state, and then we're like, yes, another day. Why sometimes does it not happen?
I think you actually wake up before your body and mind, like, shuts down
that's the idea.
The off mode.
But if you wake up, then technically your mind is awake. So it's really just your body that's not moving.
Yeah, your body hasn't got the signal that it's...
But if our mind is the thing that controls the body, right? We're just a flesh suit, encapsulated in a weird skull.
Meat puppet.
Pretty much, yeah. So it seems really weird that your mind can be awake. You can have these thoughts, quote unquote, hallucinations, auditory or visual, and your body is just laying there like a corpse being like, I'm sure it's fine. You know, it doesn't make sense to me that it should either happen every single night or it shouldn't happen at all.
I think it's your subconscious. Just your subconscious doesn't necessarily care if your body's awake because it's always working no matter what, even when we're sleeping. So,
but at that point, it's your conscious. You know,
no, because
you wouldn't be able to remember it if it's subconscious. Subconscious is stuff that goes behind the scenes, right? It's what keeps us breathing. It's what keeps us all this other like.
Yeah, but the memory isn't necessarily the same with your subconscious. I'm sure you still can remember things when the subconscious is dealing with it. You just remember it differently because the subconscious is a little bit more basic. So
it's got a pumpkin spice latte in hand.
Not in this case, because that's not basic.
That's pretty basic.
In the fall, maybe for certain people. I mean, I've never had a pumpkin spice latte.
You've never had one? Not even to test it out? But what's the hype on this?
No.
Wow. I've had many a pumpkin spice latte, and I have no shame in that. But I think the older I get, the more I'm like, it's not that great. You know what is great? The toasted white mocha. Now that I will get on board with.
Caramel latte.
There you go. Very yummy indeed. And that concludes the coffee portion of this. What are you drinking at home today, huh? You got your oolong. You got your Earl Grey.
I just got black coffee.
Black coffee. Christian likes to keep it racist here. He sees my coffee bordering on white, and he's like, no, that's not coffee.
Like, no, that's too much sugar for me.
No, I had to cut out a lot of sugar. This is not as tasty as it could be.
I've noticed from cutting out sugar, after a while, you kind of get used to it. And sugar is a little overwhelming. Like, I had a couple pieces of candy at work.
Ooh, a piece of candy.
And it was just like tiny little Three Musketeers bite-sized.
Yeah, and it messed you up.
It started to.
It's like, we're coming for you, Christian. No, I've noticed that too. Since I don't eat as much sugar now, I forget what I had a couple days ago, but it was like just a snack size type thing. And then like for the rest of the afternoon, I felt like I was really grumpy.
It happened.
Just like weird. I'm like, wow, this is bizarre.
That's when you realize that sugar
is the devil.
Is the most dangerous drug.
We look at sugar and we say,
maybe demons do exist. Demon is in white crystals.
Wow. Racist.
No, it's just the fact. I mean, they made a whole show about it with Walter White. I don't know if those were white crystals. Wasn't his special?
It was blue.
Okay.
But that's enough about the drugs. Let's get into this next one. It's called The Things I Cannot See.
Ooh, I like that title.
And it's by James Rowe. James has an I in there, so I'm not sure if it's Jaime's Rowe.
Or Jamie's
Rowe. Who cares? I've seen shadow people and scary stuff. The scariest things are the ones I hear, the ones I feel but can't see. They lurk just out of my peripheral vision, under the bed, behind me. I hear them breathe wet, ragged breaths, the kind no human could make. Sometimes, okay, Christian's skeptical. He thinks there's actually a human being under the bed making wet, ragged breaths.
I've heard human beings make wet, ragged breaths. Not under the bed that I know of.
Okay. Talking about something weird that we probably won't get into.
I
really want to touch on it. It's fine.
You've just heard unhealthy people that, like, when they breathe, they got that, like, phlegmy sound to them. And it's just yucky.
Great. Yeah. Great addition. Sometimes they make tittering sounds. You hear that from unhealthy people? Tittering sounds?
I don't even know what a tittering
sound.
It's
a clicking. It feels like a clicking.
Is it more like say a rodent running along a wood
perhaps
beam or something like that? Yeah. I don't know, man. That's weird.
That is weird. Especially the ones that lurk under the bed. Hey, maybe it is a rodent. That's the sound they make as they pull the breath from my lungs.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Now we're getting weird. It feels like they're sucking my very life force from my chest. I can't scream. I can't run. I am at their mercy, and mercy is not a word they are familiar with. Until I realize it's just sleep paralysis, and that snaps me out of it. I've trained my brain pretty well to recognize the signs of sleep paralysis, and now I just wake up. I don't know, man. There's a lot of stories of, I forget what the legend is behind it, but there's it's the thing that takes your breath at night.
Succubus or incubus?
I think that's more sexual in nature.
Of course we made it sexual.
Wow.
Probably just took your breath and
we're like, I've been abused. Hold on a second here. I honestly can't remember what the word is, but it's not, maybe it is just the old hag or something. I know that sits on your chest, but the idea of like it draining your life force is vampiric in nature, almost like an energy vampire.
We've all met those.
We have. But part of me wonders if there's some correlation with an entity of sorts that also does this, because there's a lot of those stories where it's like it's draining my life force, and especially in a situation like this where it's sleep paralysis, you can't do anything about it. You hear all these evil sounding wet, ragged breaths and titterings. You're like, well, wait a second here, this isn't good.
I feel like sometimes with sleep paralysis, and based on what you hear or see, you almost sometimes need to examine what's going on in your mind in your waking hours to see if you're contributing to. Yeah, you could be the one. You could be the demon.
Yeah, you are tittering yourself, sir. No, I don't know about all that.
Yeah, do that behind closed doors, please.
Yeah. Wow. Taking it there again?
You know, it's funny because one of the times that I had sleep paralysis, I recognized I was in a dream, and I basically was trying to make a noise to kind of wake myself up. And my voice wouldn't even work. It was superhuman strength that I almost had to use our mental strength to make a noise. And I'm glad that nobody was there, because I probably woke up sounding like a wounded walrus or something.
Yeah, like a death rattle. Just
yeah.
Wow, what's wrong, Christian?
I don't even remember what the dream was now. I just remember the struggle to actually say something.
Sounds spiritual, Christian.
It could be.
It could be.
Maybe sleep paralysis is a spiritual journey.
I believe it to be too.
That we've read about for years, but the ancient writers didn't necessarily put the dream and stuff together. The dream and the spiritual and the demons.
I've had what I consider to be very spiritual dreams, like attack dreams, with like even what I talk about people trying to get in the house and stuff could be viewed from a spiritual angle. But there's been a couple where, like you said, where it like takes your entire life force to scream or try to scream. I had one of those when I was a kid, and like walked in and something was draining my mom's life force, some weird demonic, and like I was trying to scream at it, and it literally took me so long to actually muster up a scream that when I did, I woke up from it because it was that intense.
I wonder if, and we're not going to go down a path where we're going to debate religion right now.
Mm-hmm. We've done that enough recently. We're trying to get back to, we'll do that again in a couple of weeks. Don't worry.
Yeah. I wonder if the experiences are different in these scenarios for more spiritual people or people of faith, if they see things differently, if they automatically gravitate toward it being evil. And I mean, we can just make the assumption I'm talking about Christianity, but I'm not in this case. I think it would be fascinating to go to any of the different, parts of the world where their spirituality is of a different faith and see if that contributes to the type of things they see and hear in this state.
Yeah. Well, I think evil can be felt regardless of, belief system. So in a situation like that, evil is probably the first thing you're going to go to.
But I want to see how that's painted, because to me, when I go to that place with evil stuff, I'm not like thinking, oh, it's a demon or Satan. I'm thinking, this is my lizard brain doing weird stuff. I mean, how
can you call that evil though? Like if that's just your lizard brain, that's just stupid. Because it's not evil. You're like, oh, this dumb lizard brain of mine.
Oh, I mean, if you think about the things we tell ourselves and talk to ourselves in our mind all day, it's not that it's evil. It's just it can lead us to evil places the way we talk to ourselves. Not necessarily doing evil, but maybe not treating ourselves the way we should be treated because of the way we talk to ourselves all day. Unless you're one of those weirdos that
doesn't have the like internal dialogue or whatever.
I'm like,
that is weird. Like the people are like, I don't hear a voice. And I'm like, wow.
This is in another, part of our genre. That might be an alien if they don't have that inner monologue.
Possibly. And there's one thing we know. Aliens exist. Yeah, that is true. There's a lot of avenues we could take with sleep paralysis. My favorite is obviously the spiritual side of it. Like you're under attack when you're just trying to nap and stuff. Like, I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. And the demon's like, I got you now, bitch. You have no idea what's going to happen now.
Yeah. We're going to make you quit your job, be destitute because you can't sleep.
Oh, yeah. That's the good stuff. And more of the good stuff. This next story is called The Pacing Shadow Figure. And it's by Emmanuel Matthew. Anyway, it was nearing the end of my second semester, and I was procrastinating on my assignments and seminars for 2 or 3 days straight. I used to stay up very late getting my work done and went to class the very next day. I was barely functioning as a human being and realized the importance of a good night's sleep. Anyway, I was successful in submitting everything before the last date. That night, there was a football tournament, and everyone from my campus hostel was really excited to go. I too was interested, but as a whole, my sleep cycle was in a ruin, so I chose to stay instead. The hostel inside the campus wasn't really that big, and many students opted for outside hostel because of the strict rules, so we were only 16 or something together. By evening, all of them went, and I was the only one in the hostel. I shared my room with a mate, and our beds were against the wall. To the right of my bed, across the hall, there was the door, and to the left, the window. By evening, all of them went, and I was all alone. I had dinner way early and went to bed around 8 or 9 and instantly fell asleep. The next thing I remember is looking at the side where the door is. As there was moonlight through the window, it wasn't pitch black in the room, so the side where the door was somewhat visible. Then it happens. From the shadowy side where the door is, something emerges and started walking towards the window side. My first thought was that my roommate is back, but that thought didn't even last a second because the figure was almost 7 feet tall and was covered in black. There was no face I could see, but the physical appearance resembled a human. I tried to move my head, but didn't move an inch. Tried to say something, but couldn't open my mouth. My limbs were also frozen. So there I lie, motionless, while a black figure almost 7 feet tall was walking through the middle of the room. As the figure reached the window side, it started to walk back to the side where the door is. It kept on going from one side to the other side. It was like the scene from the movie Insidious where a ghost walks outside the room, but in my case, inside. Gradually, the pace at which it was moving was getting fast. I wanted to cry or scream or at least move, but it was not possible, and that feeling is something I hope no one ever goes through. Then, as the figure reached near my bed, it stopped and quickly came towards me while making a really wild sound and movement, and it almost reached my face. Then, finally, it was over. There was no black figure anymore, but everything else in my room was as exactly as it was during my sleep paralysis session. So I couldn't understand whether what happened was just my imagination or real. I didn't cry or move, so I just lay there motionless, and then the tears came. For about 10 minutes or more, I was in a state of shock because I had not heard about sleep paralysis being like this before that incident. I was not sure whether that black thing was real or my imagination. After some time, with the courage I can manage, I reached for my phone, which was on the desk near my bed. It was past 2 a.m., but still called my sister as she was the closest sibling, but she didn't pick up. I decided not to call anyone else. Now, this poses an interesting question, which I'm sure we've touched on in the past, and which we'll probably touch on in every episode of Sleep Paralysis in the future. Is there a possibility that when you're in this state, you are between worlds in the sense that you have the sleep where people already think that when you sleep, you could be, astral projecting, or you could be living an entirely different life, right? And so maybe you have the ability to see things that are on the other side of this world because you're in like a defenseless stupor just on your bed. I mean, I don't understand why a 7 foot tall shadow figure would just pace your room and then jump in your face and scare the crap out of you. But if it's not a good entity or, something that brings fear, then maybe that's what they do. Maybe they just try to scare you whenever they can.
I think, again, you must look within yourself.
Yes, of course.
What is causing that? But if it is another entity, then when you hear about sleep paralysis stories and the different things, I guess, shadow people that people see a lot of times, or what is it, the Hat Man also?
Not necessarily tied to sleep paralysis, but you do get the crossover there.
Yeah. Why? What if, it almost feels like there's always watchers out there watching us. And why are they watching us sleep? Are they watching us all the time? Are they always there? It's just, and we just, again, this isn't necessarily something I believe in. I believe that's just
your brain,
pretty much.
But how can you have that with, because we've done out of body episodes, we've done astral projection and stuff like that, and in those stories they encounter entities as well. So you believe you can astral project, you believe you can remote view and stuff. How is it outside the realm of possibilities that in this state you're also tapping into something like that? And so people, in reality here, in the sane world or whatever, we're like, oh, that's just your brain. It's just, you're either the hypnagogic or whatever hallucinations, or you're dragging things out of your dreams. Like, how do you differentiate between the two if we believe that there's an astral plane out there, a spiritual plane that you can tap into with your astral body? What is the huge difference between that and a physical experience?
I almost think some of it is the fact that if there is an astral plane that we can visit, it's a lot different than how we see it or experience it, because it's basically like an alien world.
And we're confined to our senses. Like, so
Right.
Even outside of that, like there's shit in colors that we probably can't even take in right now.
Right.
That would be confusing.
We have to kind of change it and put it in a perspective we can understand.
Yes.
And define, and that might create a lot of confusion of what we're seeing and experiencing. Obviously, there's like visual and auditory hallucinations on some level.
Yeah.
And some stories, I think, are just that. Sometimes when you get things standing in your room with you, that's makes you wonder what's really going on. Are you able to project that thing without thinking about it? Is your subconscious doing this to you? What's the message? What does it mean?
I think that'd be a weird thing for your subconscious to do.
But our subconscious does weird things a lot, but that would be extremely weird. And there has to be a reason for it.
Like, why would it intentionally try to scare you?
I don't know if it's intentionally trying to scare you.
But if it's your subconscious, then it knows that you'd be scared of that. Like, it's a weird thing. Instead of being like, oh, look at this field of daisies that has sprouted in my bedroom, it's always something sinister. It's like, oh, look at this gigantic, weird shadow demon man pacing my bedroom.
I think the subconscious doesn't care.
But it's you.
But it's your subconscious. It runs differently than you're conscious. So maybe it's not important that you're scared, or maybe it's just as simple as you're supposed to be scared every once in a while. It makes your body run better, as long as it's not like the levels of fear that's going to damage you.
Heart attack.
That's why people like roller coasters and scary movies. It's a natural process to have that fear come through you. It's just not natural to live in it.
Yeah, you put yourself through that intentionally, knowing that it's entertaining. Like this, on the other hand, the entire idea is that we're supposed to protect ourselves constantly, right? Like our brain is always telling us, oh, this is a danger, this isn't a danger. It seems counterintuitive to have a double agent on the inside of your brain who's like, oh no, show him the shadow demon. That'll get him.
Well, some of it could just simply be that when you're sleeping, you're in the process of a lot of things, like repairing things in your body.
Sure.
All kinds of things like that happen while you're sleeping. So maybe the energy is placed in that, doing that, and then that just opens up different avenues to see and hear things for whatever reason. Maybe you're not being blocked off from that other stuff that's walking around this world that we don't see.
The demons, no doubt.
I mean, a lot of people call them demons. They just might be old entities that were here before the earth was here. And
if they were here before the earth was here, what were they walking around on, Christian? Come on.
That's a good question.
They're just floating in space like, this is my land.
No, maybe at that time they were on a different planet doing the same thing to triangle-headed beings. I don't know.
Triangle-headed beings. Good stuff.
I can already see. Oh, he said beans.
Yeah, you can hit the bean dispenser to your left if you'd like.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they're delicious, man. Many a flavor of Jelly Bellies in that bad boy.
I'm sure people don't want to hear me chewing on those.
Yeah, well, they hear you chewing on gum and breathing in the mic enough, so it's probably par for the course.
Because when I come in here in the butt crack of the morning, my allergies are hitting me.
That really does happen. This next story is called I Wasn't Alone, and it's by Emma Bauer.
Emma, that's because Jesus was with you.
In your heart, no doubt. I've only ever had sleep paralysis once, but it sucked. That sounds right. It was crazy. I was having vivid and mostly bad dreams all night. I went to bed at around 1, so I'd only been asleep roughly an hour and a half, and at several points I dreamed I woke up and fell back asleep. I was having a nightmare and woke up, but I wasn't entirely sure if I was actually awake until after the paralysis ended. I remember not being able to move. It felt really weird, surreal almost. My hands, I think, were either tucked under me or at my sides. I sleep on my stomach. And they felt tingly and numb, like I'd been laying on them funny.
Happens to me all the time.
It really do be like that. I remember all of a sudden getting an urge to pray to God that I was okay and ask him to make sure nothing happened to me. And then an impending sense of doom washed over me, like something awful was going to happen. And I remember thinking, just take deep breaths, it'll go away. But I still felt like I was in a half-lucid state, not 100% sure if it was real or a dream. So I was breathing deeply, almost hyperventilating, because I was freaking out. It lasted about 10 to 15 seconds if I had to guess. Then I moved and blinked and thought about what just happened and realized it was sleep paralysis. I freaked out more and started crying. On top of the paralysis and the sense that something bad is going to happen, I felt a pressure on my chest. It kind of hurt to breathe. There was almost a feeling that someone was in the room with you, like a demon or some shit. Freaky. After I sat up and calmed down enough, I turned on a light and tried to stay up as long as I could because I didn't want it to happen again. Ah, yes, the unseen presence causing terror in your heart. What could it be?
It sounds like the human experience, the way you just said it. Like there's always an unseen presence that is destroying our lives.
Well, there is.
And we make it out to be all these different weird things depending on who you are, what you are, where you are. But I don't know, man. Can you imagine? Okay, so sleep paralysis is a relatively new term. But 100 years ago when people were experiencing sleep paralysis.
Just the old hag.
We almost need to find some old sleep paralysis stories before we called it sleep paralysis.
That would be fun. I mean, there's definitely indicators that you can be like, oh, this was definitely a sleep paralysis event, even though they call it something else, like, you know.
Like religion. Just kidding. Moving on.
Wow. Christian, you just can't help yourself.
It's just funny to say shit like that. But anyway, I don't know what I was going to say. All
That
this
happens.
talking about sleep paralysis, though.
Making you sleepy. Now you don't want to take a nap.
With the lack of sleep that I had last night. So
see, that's one thing. A lot of people are like, well, what induces sleep paralysis is lack of sleep, stress, pretty much like checking every box that I live within 24 hours a day. And I'm like, well, it's weird that these are the indicators that you could have sleep paralysis, or that it's going to come on a lot harder than it would if you weren't stressed out all the time. And yet I've never experienced it. What does that mean? Am I some kind of superhuman? Do I have
superior brain capacity?
Or is it perhaps that I have some form of protection over me? And actually,
maybe demons do exist. They don't. They must think the way I think.
Yeah.
The world would be a better place.
If they thought the way I think?
The way I think. You have a weird way of thinking.
Christian, you're a spiritual nomad, all right? You have no sense of direction on the spiritual plane.
I do.
That is not a good way to think.
Why is it not a good way to think?
Because there's no purpose.
There is purpose. We're here to learn.
Is that what we're here for?
And to be good to the people we care about.
And bad to the people we don't.
I mean, that's typically the human way, but maybe we can transcend beyond that someday.
You don't need to transcend. You just need to read the good book. The end.
Can I
be good to your neighbors?
Is that related to The Good Place?
It is not.
Okay.
That's a demonization. A funny one, but demonization nonetheless.
Kind of weird that show is funny.
It is very weird that show is funny.
Not a typical comedy.
That is true. That last story was another example of unseen presence, but the sense of terror.
Like The Night Before Christmas.
Okay.
Unseen presence.
2 Christmas references in this episode already. Very interesting.
It's kind of funny. In Alaska, summer is such a precious thing that when you get into July and then August, you realize it's going away. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, Halloween and Christmas are coming.
This is Halloween. Actually, we do have this year, Halloween falls on a Thursday. So we don't have to do anything extra. We just got to make a Halloween episode, Halloween video or whatever, and call it a day.
Gotcha.
But we should probably start looking into that because it is going to creep up on us very quickly.
Dude, yesterday it was like January and I was freezing my ass off.
And tomorrow will be January again, and you will once again be freezing your ass off.
Dude, I freeze my ass off every day, and even in the summer here, because the store I work at is so cold.
Very true. Based on your firsthand account, I can tell you that is very true.
Yeah.
Which is something maybe you should take as a piece of advice when you hear other people's firsthand accounts about things. You can also say, that is very true.
No.
Because I know you and I trust you, therefore, very true.
No, because my coworkers are telling me how hot it is in there.
Wow.
So that's kind of goes with what you were trying to say. Everybody's a little different and sees the world differently.
See, now I have no proof that your coworkers said that. You could just be trying to finagle your way out of this.
Dude, I have coworkers that are wearing shorts and like a tiny shirt.
Well, you're really checking out your coworkers, Christian. Kind of perverted, but not to be unexpected at this point.
I am not checking out my coworkers
It's
in that
fine,
way.
dude.
Just some people are
I
roasted.
love the probing.
I mean, I have nothing to go with or nowhere to go with that one.
It's fine. Where we can go with that one is into this next story, which is called, Well, Damn. And it's by Carl J. Lambauma. Who knows? Why is everything Italian with me? It's fine. It was late, and as usual, I wasn't feeling sleepy, so I stayed up throughout the whole night in my living room watching TV. And when 5 a.m. came, I decided to sleep on my sofa. I laid down on my chest, my head turned toward the TV, and closed my eyes. A little time after I opened them, I was in my dream. In it, I was completely dizzy, still laying on my chest. My room, which was pretty similar to my real one, was completely filled with a dark mist. The TV was on, but with no image and no sound. It was blank, and the light emanating from it was barely visible. Suddenly, a dark figure formed itself right in front of me, between me and my TV, and I somehow wasn't afraid of it. I didn't move, smiled as if I knew it was seeking help, and I could somehow help by praying for it. Weird choice, weird flex there.
It's funny how so many people pray in these situations where they're stressed, even if they're, I mean, the joke is that even an atheist prays in a foxhole.
Mm-hmm.
Got to cover your bases, man.
But you usually don't hear people praying for the entity, which is what this guy pretty much said, is like, I knew I could help somehow by praying for it. So this weird shadowy thing appears in front of you. You're like, can I pray with you, friend?
That sounds like the beginning of a possession movie.
Well, there you have it.
You try to help out the demon, and the demon helps itself to you.
Oh, yeah. As it was standing there, I said with a clear voice, while being in the same position with my eyes half open from my dizziness, quote, all of the spirits near me, come to me. I will make you pass to the other side. Come. Don't be afraid. Come to me. I will help you.
Who the hell is this weirdo?
This guy falls asleep at 5 a.m. and is suddenly summoning every spirit around him to pass on through to the other side.
I don't believe... I see what you did there.
Yes, very good.
I'm not...
A little conceited, if anything, right? Like, it's me. I will help you pass.
Maybe.
Me, I fell asleep covered in Cheeto dust watching TV at 5 a.m., but let me help you to the other side, friends.
It's like he took his teaching to increase or help the flock differently. The flock is not supposed to include demons, buddy.
Who's to say? We don't even know what this guy's beliefs are. It just says, I'm going to pray for this.
Well, the fact that he's like eating Cheetos and sitting on the couch, not doing it, not sleeping till 5 a.m, tends to show that he doesn't make the best choices.
That is true. Or they.
I mean, I've been there as a night owl plenty of times.
It happens.
I don't try to save demons.
Good call.
The die has already been cast.
Okay. 4 more human-like shapes formed themselves in the mist, and they stood around the first one. The first one then started walking slowly towards me and stopped not so far away from me. While laying on my chest still, I said, in the name of... And before saying Jesus, a powerful force of a magnitude I couldn't even imagine or describe suddenly pressed the back of my neck. It paralyzed me, made me deaf, my mouth still open. The dark shadows disappeared, but the mist stayed. My eyes rolled back and didn't move as I tried to move them. It was like a constant and powerful tension flowing through my body, paralyzing me completely and instantly. I tried to fight it, to snap out of it, but I quickly felt powerless and knew I had lost control. I started to fear for my life, with a tear flowing across my paralyzed face. It felt like it lasted forever. When all of a sudden the force let go of me, I immediately woke up, moving my arms and legs as if I freed myself from something holding me, with my mouth fully open, watery eyes, and pure fear and anger. I sat there on my sofa wondering what the heck was that. All of the sleep paralysis I experienced before occurred when I was just coming out of a dream and was awake in reality, but couldn't move. I would do my best to free myself, and it would eventually work for 30 seconds or so after. Then I would go back to sleep or fully wake up. But this time it happened in a dreamlike state, and in an unusual way affected me in our reality, was caused by something, which never happened to me before, and the dream was really bizarre to say the least. I don't even pray. And when I looked at the time, I realized I only slept for 12 minutes. I didn't understand it, and still don't. It occupied my thoughts for quite a bit, but then I decided to classify it as another type of sleep paralysis experience, and since then, I don't think much of it anymore. But I don't fully believe it was my brain playing tricks. I believe in the paranormal, so I would be open to it being a paranormal experience. Whatever it was, it scared the hell out of me. So that's an interesting one. This dude doesn't even pray, and in this weird, evil, dreamlike state or whatever, he's like praying for these weird dark entities. And before he says Jesus, they're like, whoa, hold on now, friend. All right, that's not, we thought you were going to send us somewhere else. This isn't where we want to go. Let me pressure your back. Does that sound good?
I think something that I haven't heard before that I heard in this story was the reset. or the power off button that whatever this was pushed on the back of his head.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, he's damaged.
What if that's what these things can do to us? Just turn us off or reset us at any time.
It's good to know there's a kill switch on the back
that we don't have access to.
That's true.
Maybe that's where what we need to understand in the astral realm is where that button is and what does it really do.
Would that be the silver cord?
I thought the silver cord was attached to your like.
It's more linking to your physical body or something like
that? I
that?
thought it was attached to your belly or something.
Yeah.
Like an umbilical cord, but
Man,
I could be wrong.
The astral realm is weird as hell. Let's just be honest. Let's say it like it is. Nothing makes sense over there, and that's fine. Actually, if you think about it, nothing makes sense over here, too.
Yeah, I was like, the real world makes even less sense.
Yeah. Especially these days, things are getting wild, all right? Things are weird as hell.
You can be in the astral realm and be like, oh, I don't understand any of this. This must be normal. This is fine.
This is fine.
But when you wake up in the real world, you're like,
You're like, wait, I have to go to work? What? Not cool.
What are these responsibilities things they didn't tell me about when I was a kid?
They're trying to shield it from you. It comes for all of us. Anyway, that's a weird story. I like that one a lot, though. It's such a, but that's one that I've never heard coming across sleep paralysis stories. I'm just like, wow.
How high was this person to want to save the demons?
I mean, I don't know. Who's to say, really? But
that's almost like when you every once in a while see a video of some weirdo jumping into the tiger pit at the zoo and starts talking to them like they're their buddies. And then
not everybody's Daniel,
Yeah. Are you talking biblical?
Well, I don't know many other stories where someone jumps into a lion's den or tiger pit, as you mentioned it, and survives.
I've seen it with all kinds of zoo animals, and I'm like...
Yeah, I do that with penguins, but I don't know if I'd do that with lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
No, not even gorillas or...
Well, definitely not gorillas, man. They'll rip your head off like a celery stalk, right? You don't need that.
Yeah, shove their feces down your...
Wow, getting weird.
You ever go to the zoo around a monkey enclosure or a gorilla enclosure and you're standing outside around with all the other humans and you look down and there's nothing but gorilla poop out there?
I can honestly say I've done that 0 times.
Seriously, next time anybody goes to the zoo and you're around one of those enclosures with a smart simian
that has
superior brain capacity. Yeah. Life is so boring sitting in that zoo for them that they get entertainment from throwing their poo at the humans. I've heard stories where they hit them too, dead in the chest. That would be hilarious if it wasn't me.
I think it'd be even funnier if it was you.
No, the smell, man.
No, the smell, man. Anyway, we're going to close it out with this story from Kieran Farouk. Or Kyron.
Siren.
I've heard it both ways.
Biren.
Closing it out on a classic called The Old Hag.
Always talking about my mom like that.
Okay. Self-deprecation, bonus points. It says, I was living in Dubai and had gotten home from work. I was very tired, so I decided to go take a nap while my mom was getting dinner ready.
Can I just say this is a djinn?
You can say that.
Okay.
Don't believe anything else, but he calls it a djinn within 10 seconds of the story opening up. That sounds about right. Anyway, after a while, I woke up, or thought I had woken up, but my entire body was paralyzed. I could not move a single muscle. And then I opened my eyes and saw an old woman's face on my chest as if she was lying down on top of me. No, thank you. Her face was...
Or, thank you, ma'am.
Wow.
How much will this cost? I love the probing.
There you go.
That could be the next thing he said. Beat it out of them.
Okay.
Some people...
That's what she said, but that's fine. Anyway, saw an old woman's face on my chest as if she was lying down on top of me. Her face was incredibly scary and wrinkly, and she had white, frizzy hair. I screamed at the top of my lungs, but guess what? No sound came out. I could feel the muscles in my throat trying to make a sound, but nothing was happening.
It's because he was kissing the old lady.
Yeah, I got dry mouth. Got to wet that whistle. Anyway, I used to practice Islam at that time, so I mentally started to recite Quranic verses, which are supposed to protect you.
Interesting.
But for the first time in my life, I couldn't remember any.
I'm glad we got this story, because...
Yeah.
We generally only get sleep paralysis from a Christian perspective.
Not a Christian world.
Not necessarily a Christian perspective, but in the West, it tends to be a Christian society. That's how it's built. So we kind of default to that. Even like I said, atheists will default to that in times of extreme fear.
For sure. Yeah. And for the record, I don't leave out any other religions but Christianity. I just don't find stories very often.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's because of the world we live in is a Christian society, even though, we can argue about all the other shit, which we won't.
Which we will at some point.
But in this case, I'm super excited to hear a story from a different religious perspective, kind of.
Yes. Unfortunately for this person, as it says,
they were practicing Islam then.
No, so I used to practice Islam at that time, so I mentally started to recite Quranic verses, which are supposed to protect you, but for the first time in my life, I couldn't remember any.
That's because it's sleep paralysis.
Sure. So it's like, oh, I know what protects me, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't remember any of those. Interesting timing, no doubt. I don't
Also, more proof that maybe you needed to understand your religious philosophy a little bit better.
Or maybe some religious philosophies are incorrect. But that's not for me to say. I'm just reading a story.
They typically are not correct. I mean, not incorrect is what I should say, because everybody throughout history has had their own version of religion.
Sure.
Just the big three tend to
just the big three
stomp them out.
Wow.
And Islam's one of the big three. Beat it out of them. If you look throughout the world, there's a couple places where you have Buddhism and Hinduism and a couple others, but the big three have spread throughout the world.
You make it sound like a sports team or something like that. Like this, like we're out here playing football.
No, I'm talking more of a franchise.
The big three. We got McDonald's, Burger King, and Carl's Jr., of course.
Yeah, and they've been
everything else sucks.
Sometimes the different, religious fast food buildings change their menu a little bit, change the process of making the spiritual food.
Are you ready to step down from your soapbox?
I'm just like rambling. I'm like, I'm really not making any sense. So let's move on. But I kind of am making sense. But
let's not get ahead of ourselves.
This is not the episode for that.
Yeah, you usually virtue signal on different terms, but this time you brought your soapbox, and that's fine.
I did not bring a soapbox. I brought a franchise.
Wow. So now that everyone is not scared at all from the story, let's continue.
Let's start all over again.
So
we're in Dubai.
Mentally started to recite Quranic verses, which are supposed to protect you, but for the first time in my life, I couldn't remember any. Like I said before, it was terrifying. Then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I got a thought that if I closed my eyes and focused all of my energy on making a small movement, it might go away.
It's funny.
I have no idea where or why I got this thought. Some might say divine intervention.
Or that's actually what everybody tries to do when they're in the throes of sleep paralysis.
You can say everyone, but this person says, I don't know why. So at least there's one person that didn't, So I closed my eyes and focused my entire energy on moving a thumb. Finally, I managed to move the tip of my thumb, and all of a sudden I was awake and fully able to move. I thought I had a ghost encounter, and I went running from my room into the living room where my parents were and started sobbing. This is where my sister comforted me and told me about the Old Hag syndrome. She then proceeded to Google the term and show me results so I would feel better that it was not a ghost encounter, but something people experience regularly enough for it to widely be reported on the internet. What else is regularly reported on the internet that people experience a lot? Everything, The Hat Man.
The Hat Man was invented on the internet.
That's what you think.
Like Slender Man.
There's Hat Man experiences before the internet, so not to...
That's because people used to wear hats back in the old days a lot. So it's ingrained.
Now the terror. Yeah, the terror. Oh no, it's a hat on a man. Oh goodness gracious me. Anyway, needless to say, I felt much better after. This was over 6 years ago and has never happened again since. Although thinking about the event always makes me feel a little scared and makes my heart beat faster.
I kind of feel like this person isn't rich enough to be living in Dubai, but I guess the workers there could have a normal house without a cheetah and 5 Lamborghinis trimmed in actual gold.
Okay.
Do you ever see videos from Dubai and you're like, what the hell is this place and when can I go there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I know there's a lot of freedoms there, but there's also a lot of strict,
I don't know.
there's freedoms for certain types of people. Let me put it that way. For us, we'd probably be fine, but other people might not be as.
I think visitors would be fine, but the fact that they import workers from Asia and treat them,
not a lot of freedom in that, turns out.
Yeah, it's so. But like when you see that they in the ocean they make islands in the shape of countries.
Okay.
So basically all they do is suck up the sand from the bottom and put it in a different area and put it in shapes, and they have all these islands.
Sure.
They have a place where you can ski in the middle basically all year round, but when you think about Dubai, it's a desert place.
Yes.
So you go inside this place and ski.
Is that what you took away from this story? Was Dubai?
I'm just tripping because
is there anything you want to touch on the actual creepy experience, or you want to talk about?
I'm getting there. Are
you like a travel agent for Dubai now, and you don't?
Dubai has always been fascinating to me.
Okay, and here we go. We started it again.
But the Old Hag, that's an interesting. It's nice to see that other places have that Old Hag that you don't, because the Old Hag comes across to me as very European.
Well, it's very ancient too. It's a really old story.
Yeah. But like European, maybe over into like Russia and stuff like that, but not typically down in Asia or Middle East.
Let me ask you this, and we're going to close it out on this probably, but why is the visual of an old woman on your chest what a lot of people see? Can there be some truth to that? Like maybe this entity is an evil old lady or like a witch type character or something like that, spirit, or because it just seems odd that people that have no connection or relation to each other can all see the same thing while they're in the throes of sleep paralysis. Doesn't that seem kind of weird that of all the things you could see, it'd be an old woman on your chest?
No,
that doesn't seem the slightest bit weird.
No, I think it's just like an archetype that our brain,
yes, of course,
gravitates toward.
How? Where would that stem from?
Because most of us have dealt with old ladies. Most of it's been within our society since we were humans, basically.
I think of all the things that we deal with, though, old ladies are usually not the creepy factor. Those are usually like the wholesome ones. Like, oh, nice, sweet old lady. We've dealt with much more sinister things that we could easily, our brains should jump to that if we're projecting hallucinations, be like, yes, of course. And instead it was a banker on my chest and he was telling me I was denied and my interest rates were sky high. Like that seems more likely than an old woman.
No,
it
because
does,
a lot of this stuff is that the banker, the modern things are modern. This has been around.
Bankers have been around a while.
Not as long as humans.
You think old women?
I just think it's an archetype that our brain
gravitates to. You can pull that out of your ass and say it's an archetype without any evidence whatsoever or any even like specificity to it. You're just like, it's just an archetype. And that explains it.
We would be a very boring podcast if every time you said something wrong, which is a lot, I brought in like science and explained it in science terms.
What I'm saying is I don't think you can. I think you're grasping here and you're making something that may sound proper, but if I actually pressed you on this for another 30 minutes, by the end of it, you'd be like, I don't fucking know, man. And that would be the end of it. And so I'm trying to poke a hole in your theory real quick as we close this out. Say, hey, I don't think that's right.
I don't think it's necessarily right. I think it's where we're at in brain science at this point. We don't understand enough to
here we are
to see what is causing sleep paralysis. Everything happens for a reason. What's the reason?
So what you're saying is we don't understand enough to know.
No, we understand enough to know what are probably the processes.
See, now we're backtracking.
Okay, so since it's brain science, we don't understand as much. It's not like it's using radiocarbon dating or other things like that to determine how
old. For the record, don't really understand those either, but it's fine.
But you say that recently you've taken your soapbox in these situations where there is actual science that I could go down a list of and tell you why it's right and how this works.
No, you could recite words. Boring. You could recite words. It's nothing that's inside you. It's what you've heard like in
something
media.
I could learn.
Yeah, over
because
time.
because it's already been learned and
I would
proven.
encourage you to do that. In the same sense that I dust my soapbox off from time to time, everything that I quote unquote preach about to me is common sense. Like there's not a lot of like deep thinking that goes into this shit. It's to me, I'm like, what makes the most sense? It's the old, what's that one equation? The most likely thing is, what's that called? You remember that?
Occam's razor.
Is that Occam's razor? No, I was going to say that, but I thought I was like, no, it's not that. But yeah. I mean, that's like, to me, it's like, it makes the most sense for me. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right. I'm saying if you were to present me two options here, I would tell you the one to, in my heart of hearts, makes the most sense. That's called common sense. And if anything, as a society, we need to bring that back because I think
disagree.
It's been lost.
I disagree.
You don't want common sense?
I think common sense is an interpretation of what you think is right or what I think is right. It's not necessarily common sense. It might be common. It's probably not sense most of the time.
Do you think I'm too stupid then to?
No, it's not
like
about
form
stupid.
an opinion on it,
it's not stupid. It's just, we live in a very complex society where most of us don't have the time to go deep into learning certain things because,
which, if anything, is what they want, right? They want us dumb.
Oh my gosh! Now
we figured it out, guys. We did it.
Now,
figured it out.
I mean, in this day and age, we should never be like, they wanted it. They did this.
Well, they did, though. That's what that's what they want. They want us to be so overworked and tired that we don't give a shit about what's going on in the real world while they pull the puppet strings.
That is a brilliant plan.
It is, and it's working. That's what, I'm not saying that it's like, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. It's, again, common sense.
I'm not sure that there's a they behind it other than marketing. But that's not always anything other than to get us to spend money and time providing riches for them. I don't know if there's a sinister group out there that's like, you know what? They have a lot going on. Let's add sleep paralysis and...
Well, I'm not saying that.
Demons to the... I mean, if I was an evil leader, I'm like, give them all sleep paralysis. They won't know what the fuck's going on.
I don't think you can give them sleep paralysis. And I've long said that marketing is the root of all evil for the most part. Like, again, that was a common sense thing. Have no information to back that up. In my heart of hearts, I'm like, marketing is bad.
Speaking of marketing, check out our merch store.
Yeah, where we don't market it because it's bad. But if you want to support the show, you can check it out there. And I'm going to close this out now because it's been far too long of an episode. Follow us on social media at Freaky Deaky Pod, wherever you're at. And if you are a fan of this week's discussion, sound off in the comments.
Tell us your experiences.
Yeah, let us know your stories, or if you have thoughts on the stories shared, feel free to comment those below if you're on YouTube, or even I think Spotify now has comment section where it's not just answering a question that you post, it's literally like you can respond to comments now. So hey, I can do that. So Ellen, if you're still... No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. People are like, who the hell's Ellen? But in my heart, she remains. Folks, review the show wherever you're at. It really does help us grow. Support the show if you'd like. The merch store at thefreakydeaky.com is popping as always. You can donate, help us keep the lights on, much like our producer Eric Long, who is the OG of OGs.
He once shot a guy.
Okay.
Because that's what OGs do.
I guess that's what they did. In the meantime, we'll catch you right back here next week where Christian is going to be diving into
the... what the hell is it?
Not very confident. Not very confident.
Because I have two and I'm like... Basically, someone's going to war with Sasquatch.
Oh, nice. Well, there you go. Bigfoot's back, baby. We'll see you next week on the Frinkity Dinkity. Toodles.
Poodles.